What's up, everyone? Piscean here. Stellar Dialectics, an advanced textbook of Astro-Anthropology, quantum resonance, archetypal cycles, and the celestial code of human history. Before we get started, please like, subscribe, comment, share if you dare, and care with peace and love. And this volume synthesizes astrological tradition, anthropological data, and quantum conceptual models into a unified framework for interpreting the human journey. So, we're going to talk about 3 individual parts with a lot of information. The first part is foundations of astro-anthropology. The quantum zodiac, entanglement, superposition, and archetypal fields. The celestial pantheon, planets as agents of consciousness. Rahu and Ketu, the lunar nodes as evolutionary impulse. Fixed stars and asteroids, the fine structure of cosmic myth. Aspects, the geometric syntax of meaning. Part 2, we're going to go over the spiral of human history, precession in the ages, the grand narrative arc, astrological signatures of major civilizational shifts, the rise and fall of empires through planetary cycles, Kali Yuga and the node of disenchantment, as well as technological acceleration in the Uranus-Neptune dialectic. Alright, we're going to continue on because I cut the video off. I need to keep going. So part 3, we're going to go over origins, myths, and quantum reflections, the astrogenesis of Homo sapiens, planetary trigger hypothesis, the zodiacal roots of myth, comparative archetypology, fixed star legends and the memory of prehistoric skies, quantum observer effects and ritual and divination, toward an integral astro-anthropology. So we have a lot to discuss. We're going to start with part 1, of course, which is our foundations of astro-anthropology. So chapter 1 is the quantum zodiac, entanglement, superposition, and archetypal fields. So astrology and quantum mechanics share a provocative boundary condition here. The interplay between observer and observed, the unfoldment of meaning and apparent randomness, and the non-local connections that defy linear causality. In this textbook, we do not claim that planets emit physical forces that shape human destiny. Instead, we pose that cosmic environment is a meaning field, a hollow facto information matrix, where the positions of celestial bodies correlate with collective and individual states of consciousness. This correlation is best modeled not by Newtonian mechanics, but by quantum principles. So, superposition in the natal chart. Just as an electron exits in a superposition of states until measured, a natal chart represents a spectrum of potentialities. The birth moment collapses a particular waveform of possibilities into a lived biography, but the collapse is never total. Transits and progressions continually reopen superpositions, offering moments of choice where parallel timelines branch. History, then, is the macroscopic superposition of all individual and collective choices, resonating with moving celestial archetypes. Quantum entanglement and synchronicity. Carl Jung's concept of synchronicity in a causal connecting principle finds an analog in quantum entanglement. When 2 particles remain correlated across space-time, measurement of one instantly influences the other. In astro-anthropology, we observe that major planetary alignments coincide with simultaneous geographically dispersed cultural mutations. For example, the exile age during the Saturn-Neptune conjunction circa 580 BCE. These are not caused by the planets, but are co-emergent expressions of a deeper entangled field. We term this the archetypal resonance field, ARF, a non-local domain where mythic templates propagate. Also, the observer effect in history. Human self-awareness functions as a measurement device. When a civilization observes a particular planetary archetype through ritual, narrative, or institutional focus, it amplifies that frequency into the collective reality. Thus, the Mars archetype, when ritually engaged, can manifest as militarism or athletic vigor. When repressed, it erupts as unconscious violence. The astro-anthropologist acts as a meta-observer, deciphering which archetypes are being collapsed into actuality. Let's move on to the celestial pantheon here. Planets as agents of consciousness. In the astrological framework, planets are not mere balls of rock and gas, but psychoid entities, living symbols with intentionality. Their mythological biographies encode the spectrum of human possibility. Starting with the sun and moon, the solar principle represents the conscious self, the hero's journey, the will to individuate. The lunar principle is the anima mundi, the collective emotional body, the matrix of memory and instinct. Human history oscillates between solar outbursts of rational order, enlightenment, the project of modernity, and lunar resurgence of the repressed, romanticism, ecological awakening. Mercury is communication, trade, trickster, and hermeneutics. Mercury retrograde cycles mark periods of communicative entropy, the breakdown and renegotiation of meaning. The invention of writing, the printing press, the internet each occurred under potent Gemini, Virgo, and Mercury-Uranus signatures. Venus, of course, is value, beauty, desire, and diplomacy. The Venus cycle traces the evolution of art, currency, and social contracts. The 8-year Venus pentagram traced in the sky correlates with economic and aesthetic renewal periods. Mars is aggression, assertion, technology of force. Mars' 2-year synodic cycle, especially its retrograde phases, times armed conflicts and breakthroughs in martial technology. The transition from bronze to iron weaponry unfolded under a Mars-Pluto cycle. Jupiter, expansion, philosophy, law, and colonization. Jupiter cycles of 12 years shape ideological waves. Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions every 20 years mark the pulse of political economic paradigms, the Great Mutation. Saturn, structure, limitation, karma, and civilization skeleton. Saturn's 29.5-year cycle, particularly its return, defines generational eras. The Saturn-Pluto cycle, 33-38 years, correlates with the death and rebirth of world orders. We saw it in 1914, 1947, 1982, and 2020. Uranus, awakening, revolution, disruption, the collective nervous system. Uranus' 84-year cycle aligns with generational shifts. The Uranus-Neptune cycle, 171 years, drives utopian and dystopian visions from the French Revolution to the 1960s. Neptune, illusion, transcendence, contagion, and the imaginal. Neptune's ingress into a sign approximately 14 years colors zeitgeist dreams and addictions. Neptune in Pisces from 2011 through 2026 has seen the rise of virtual reality, mass disinformation, and spiritual bypassing. Pluto, death, regeneration, power, and the underworld. Pluto's 248-year elliptical orbit means its sign transits mark epochs. Pluto in Capricorn dismantled institutional trust. Pluto in Aquarius initiates techno-collectivism. Rahu and Ketu. Rahu, the north node, and Ketu, the south node, are mathematical points where the moon's orbit intersects the ecliptic. In Vedic astrology, they are the head and tail of the dragons Varbhanu, who stole the Amrita nectar of immortality and was decapitated. The head Rahu became insatiably hungry for worldly experience, while the tail Ketu became the disembodied witness, detached and wise. Together they encode the axes of collective evolutionary tension. Rahu in history. The sign and house of the transiting north node indicate where humanity is collectively reaching beyond its comfort zone, often through insatiable desire, technological innovation, and boundary dissolution. The age of exploration peaked with Rahu and Gemini Sag axes that thirst for new worlds. The digital revolution exploded under Rahu and Aquarius, the hunger for network connection. Rahu's 18.6-month transit through sign injects an obsessive, destabilizing impulse toward that archetype's domain. Ketu in history. Ketu represents the accumulated karmic wisdom and also the trauma residue that must be integrated and released. As Rahu propels forward, Ketu pulls backward, insisting that the past may be metabolized. The transits of Ketu through signs reveal what a civilization is collectively purging. Ketu in Cancer surface deep-rooted nationalism and ancestral wounds, while Ketu in Scorpio force reckoning with shadow power, abuse, and collective psychological depths. The nodal cycle in the 18.6-year rhythm. The full nodal cycle of 18.6 years paces the ebb and flow of societal obsession and renunciation. The eclipse cycle, Saros series, carries specific mythic signatures. Certain Saros series are linked to the rise and fall of dynasties. Fixed stars and asteroids. Beyond the planets, the fixed stars and asteroids provide a granular mythic vocabulary directly connecting human stories to specific stellar legends. Fixed stars as cosmic anchors. Each bright fixed star carries a Ptolemaic Vedic nature and a mythological narrative. When a planet, especially a luminary, personal planet, or the angles, conjoins a fixed star, that mythic story emerges into historical concreteness. Regulus. Royalty, power, vengeance, and downfall if integrity fails. The conjunction of Mars and Regulus in 2003, the Iraq War's inception, echoed the star's warrior king motif. Regulus ingressed into Virgo in 2011 after 2,000 years in Leo, marking a shift from regal autocracy to service-oriented leadership. Algol. Decapitation, intense feminine rage, and potential for transformation through confronting horror. Its mythology, Medusa, connects to the suppression of the feminine, petrifying gaze of truth. Transits of Pluto over Algol in the 1940s coincided with nuclear horrors and the unveiling of mass death. Spica. Abundance, harvest, artistry, the gift of civilization, the age of Virgo. saw the first seed agriculture under Spica's prominence in personal transits. It often rewards integrity with unexpected boons. Sirius, the scorching star of initiation linked to the dog days, technological leaps, and custodianship of sacred knowledge. Its heliacal rising was central to the Egyptian calendar and the flooding of the Nile. Asteroid archetypes. The asteroids mostly orbiting between Mars and Jupiter embody the transitional spectrum between personal and transpersonal. Their discovery epochs, early 1800s onward, coincide with the emancipation of the archetypes they represent. Ceres, discovered in 1801, the mother-daughter bond, agriculture, food, security, grief, and the negotiation of attachment. The Ceres-Pluto myth, Persephone's abduction, is the template for understanding cycles of loss and return. The industrialization of food, Ceres and Capricorn transits, brought both abundance and ecological costs. Pallas Athena, discovered in 1802, creative intelligence, pattern recognition, strategic warfare, and women's wisdom. The surge of women's education and suffrage movements aligns with Pallas cycles. Juno, discovered in 1804, marriage, contracts, jealousy, the politics of intimacy. Juno transits highlight shifts in partnership norms, from Victorian marriage to polyamory discourse. Vesta, discovered in 1807, is focus, devotion, the sacred flame, and sexual sublimation. The Vesta archetype underlies monasticism, scientific dedication, and the modern workaholic pattern. Chiron, discovered in 1977, Comet Centaur, the wounded healer, mentor, and bridge between animal and divine. Saturn and Uranus. Chiron transits reveal the collective wound that, when addressed, becomes medicine. The Chiron-Pluto conjunction of the late 1990s, early 2000s coincided with the global surfacing of sexual abuse trauma. Chapter 5 is our aspects. Planetary aspects are the angular relationships that structure the dynamic conversation within the cosmic field. They are the grammar through which the celestial mythologies interact. We extend traditional aspect interpretation through a quantum lens. Conjunction, 0 degrees, wave function, superposition. The two archetypes fuse, amplifying each other, creating a new composite entity. Conjunction marks a birth point in time for a new archetypal quality. Opposition, 180 degrees, phase entanglement. The two archetypes exist in a dynamic tension, mirroring each other. Consciousness is required to hold both and forge a third path. The full moon, sun-moon opposition, is the primordial template, consciousness reflecting on the unconscious. Trine, 120 degrees, harmonic resonance. Energy flows with ease, often so smoothly it becomes invisible, operating as background assumptions of an era. Grand trines in history indicate periods of creative flourishing, but also potential stagnation. Square, 90 degrees, quantum torque. A square generates friction that forces manifestation. Squares are the drivers of history. Without them, potential would never solidify into form. The cardinal squares, for example, Aries-Libra axis squared by Cancer-Capricorn axis, are evolutionary crucibles. Sextile, 60 degrees, constructive interference, opportunity through slight adjustment. Sextile between outer planets can signify gradual, almost unnoticed progress. Quincunx, 150 degrees, the paradox angle requiring a quantum leap in perspective to integrate seemingly unrelated domains. It forces health and holistic thinking. Minor aspects and harmonics. Quintiles, 72 degrees, speak to creative styling and form. Septiles, 51.4 degrees to fatality and destiny. Astro-Anthropology maps the harmonic signatures of historical events to decode their deeper structural tone. So, on to the spiral of human history, where we're going to talk about the precession and ages, okay? So essentially, we're talking about the precession of the equinoxes here, which is a 25,920-year wobble of Earth's axis, and it provides the master clock of astro-anthropology. As the vernal equinox point retrogrades to the zodiacal signs, each age, which is approximately 2,160 years, carries the archetypal signature of that sign's polar axis. So what we saw with the age of Leo was marked by the end of the last ice age and the flourishing of megafauna cults. The solar hero dominates the cave art of Las Cogs. Rahu's insatiable hunger drove the hunter-gatherer apex. With the age of Cancer, we saw the birth of the mother goddess civilization, matrilineal societies, and the first permanent dwellings. The sign of the crab's home-building instinct sparked the Neolithic settlement, and the fixed star Sirius's heliacal rising at the summer solstice anchored sacred calendars. With the age of Gemini, we saw the development of language, trade, and early script. The twins' duality birthed the first cities and the specialization of labor. Mercury's trickster energy disrupted the lunar unity. Twin-ship myths appear globally. The age of Taurus. We saw the Bronze Age bull cults like Minoan, Egyptian, Apis, Indus Valley, and the solidification of property and wealth. Venus ruled Taurus, built pyramids and temples, embodying the age of earthy sensual form. The second house of value saw the invention of money. The age of Aries, the Iron Age, the ram-headed Amun, the Abrahamic sacrifice of the ram. The Aries ruled warrior pharaohs and chariots. Mars's martial spirit dominated. The age opened with the fall of the Taurus-era civilizations and the rise of patriarchal nomadic conquerors. We look at the age of Pisces. The fish, ruled by Jupiter, Neptune, Christianity, fish symbol, fishers of men, Islam in the era of transcendent monotheism. The Neptunian themes of faith, illusion, and universal love coexisted with sacrifice, martyrdom, and the dissolution of boundaries. The two fish swimming opposite directions symbolize the tension between spirit and matter, institutionalized religion, Jupiter, and personal mysticism, which is Neptune. In the age of Aquarius, the cusp we are now traversing, Uranus ruled Aquarius brings electricity, the internet, artificial intelligence, collectivism, and the radical reorganization of society and the networks. Rahu in Aquarius intensifies the digital obsession, the shadows alienation, technocracy, and the loss of the personal. So, now I want to talk more about astrological signatures of major civilizational shifts, and that would mean really dissecting like the Exile Age, which occurred through the 8th and 3rd centuries BCE. So Saturn-Neptune conjunction in 580 BCE, plus Uranus-Neptune shifts, seeded the simultaneous emergence of Greek philosophy, Hebrew prophets, Buddhism, Jainism, Confucianism, and Zoroastrianism. Neptune in Scorpio and Uranus in Pisces created a crucible of death and rebirth mysticism. The Ketu transit through Aries purged the old sacrificial systems, while Rahu in Libra sought social ethics. The fall of Rome, the 5th century CE, Pluto transiting through Capricorn, the fall of institutions, while Neptune squared the eclipse axis of the Roman Empire's founding chart. The fixed star Algol was activated by Saturn, signaling decapitation of the imperial body. The Grand Trine dissolved, leaving a void. The Renaissance, the 14th through 17th centuries, the Uranus-Pluto conjunction virtually exact in 1453, the fall of Constantinople, combined with Neptune and Scorpio, deep psychological excavation, and the ingress of the vernal point deeper into Pisces. The rebirth of classical learning was a Ketu return to Greece and Rome. Ketu and Virgo, Pisces axis. The printing press, Uranus-Mercury, democratized knowledge. In the Industrial Revolution, the late 18th, 19th century, we saw Pluto in Aquarius, and it seeded technological upheaval, while Uranus in Gemini, which is inventive communication. Neptune in Scorpio, the exploitation of underground resources like coal. And the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn in 1821, the Congress system solidified the new industrial capitalist order. Now I want to talk about the rise and fall of empires through planetary cycles, specifically. So empires are born under hard aspects between Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, often with a prominent fixed star activation. The British Empire's natal chart, if taken as the 1600 East India Company Charter, has a powerful Sun-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, which is structural power, square Saturn in Aries, which is conquest. Its dissolution accelerated under the Pluto transits of the mid-20th century, so Pluto in Leo opposing that Capricorn stellium. And the Uranus-Pluto conjunction of the 1960s. The Mongol Empire's eruption coincides with the 1206 conjunction, or 1206 conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in Pisces, the great conjunction of that era, and Mars, Pluto, and Aries. The empire's fragmentation began with the Saturn return square. In the American experiment has its Mars in Gemini, Uranus in Gemini, the experiment of decentralized communication, and the Sun in Cancer, homeland identity. Its Pluto return signifies the death and regeneration of its foundational power structures. Let's talk about the Kali Yoga, the node of disenchantment. The Vedic concept of the yugas, cosmic ages, is calibrated to the precession and the nodal cycle writ large. The Kali Yuga, the age of conflict, is said to begin with the Mahabharata war and Krishna's departure, astronomically aligned with a grand conjunction around 3102 BCE. This epoch is marked by the progressive forgetting of Dharma, the ascent of Rahu-like insatiability, and the diminution of human lifespan and virtue. In this textbook, we interpret the Kali Yoga not as a linear descent, but as an increasing immersion into materiality, Rahu's domain, which creates the necessary conditions for the eventual conscious return, Ketu. The planetary nodes of Earth's orbit, the lunar nodes of the moon, and the theoretical nodes of other planets all create eclipse-like windows where karmic shadows surface. The modern crises, ecological collapse, nihilism is the Rahu apex, the complete extroversion of consciousness. The turning point requires a collective Ketu awakening, which is a non-attached witnessing that reintegrates spirit without denying matter. Let's move on to technological acceleration in the Uranus-Neptune dialectic. So every major technological leap has an astrological signature combining Uranus, planet of breakthrough in electricity, Neptune, the planet of dissolution of prior boundaries, media, and illusion, as well as often Pluto, power transformation. So the Uranus-Pluto cycle of 127 years, which is the last conjunction from 1965 through 66, sextile now, shapes the techno-political upheavals, as well as the Uranus-Neptune 171-year cycle, last conjunction was in 1993, nexus in 2164, generates the collective utopian dystopian visions. In the 1993 conjunction in Capricorn seeded the World Wide Web's public debut. All right, the neoliberal global village and the dream of cyberspace as a new frontier. We also see transhumanism, AI, and genetic epigeneering are manifestations of Uranus and Taurus, the body being hacked, Earth resources, and Neptune and Aries' new identity, virtual selves, squaring the nodes. The fixed star Regulus in Virgo now demands the integrity of service, or the fall from power, a critical choice for tech oligarchs. All right, let's talk about origins, myths, and quantum reflections. The astrogenesis of Homo sapiens, planetary trigger hypothesis. So, could the emergence of Homo sapiens and the subsequent cognitive revolution have astrological correlates? While we lack exact dates, we can work with the slow motion outer planet cycles. The great Uranus-Neptune cycle of that period likely involved hard aspects to the galactic center, circa 27 degrees Sagittarius, where the supermassive black hole acts as a broadcast of archetypal information. The Toba eruption bottleneck may coincide with the Pluto transit that would node the population, forcing Ketu-like detachment and genetic mutation. The emergence of symbolic behavior, art, burial, self-ornamentation correlates with the activation of fixed stars linked to Mercury and Venus, the Spica-directed hand, the Capella Alpha Auriga charioteer of the soul. The myth of Prometheus, Uranus, stealing fire for humanity might encode an actual celestial event, such as a major meteor impact or comet observed. On to the zodiacal roots of myth, comparative archetypology. All major mythological cycles can be mapped onto the zodiac. The labors of Heracles, our solar journey through the 12 signs. The Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh follows the sun's passage, with the bull of heaven, Taurus, the scorpion man, Scorpio, and the flood, Pisces. We dissect the sign archetypes, generally speaking. So Aries, we hear the warrior, the pioneer, the infant, myths of the divine child, the sacrifice of the ram, the emergence from chaos. Taurus, we hear the earth mother, the golden calf, the sacred cow, the lush garden, myths of stable abundance and its stubborn shadow. Gemini, the divine twins, Castor and Pollux, Romulus and Remus, the trickster Hermes, Coyote, the scribe, the liar, and the sibling rivalry. Cancer is the great mother, Isis, Demeter, the lunar boat, the nurturing breasts, the home, and the clinging craft that must retreat. Leo is the solar king, the lion, Heracles, Nemean lion, the performer, the tyrant, the myth of the rightful ruler and the fallen pride. Virgo is the virgin goddess, Astrea, Athena, the grain maiden, Persephone, the healer, Asclepios, the perfectionist craftsperson. Libra is the scales of Ma'at, the marriage, the diplomat, the judge, the fall from balanced justice into litigation. Scorpio is the serpent, the phoenix, the scorpion, the eagle, myths of death, regeneration, Osiris, Inanna, the occult, the shadow. And we go down, we see Sagittarius is the centaur, Chiron, the archer, the sage, the wanderer, myths of the quest, the flight of the arrow. Capricorn is the sea goat, the mountain climber, the wise elder, the satanic Pan, the strict father, the myth of time, patience, and melancholy. Aquarius is the water bearer, Ganymede, the rebel angel, Prometheus, Lucifer, the collective utopian, the dissolution of individuality. Pisces is the fish, the mermaid, the savior, the martyr, the mystic, the addict, the ocean of unity, consciousness, and its dissolution. The Astro-Anthropologist reads these myths as internalized stellar maps, mnemonics of celestial cycles. Alrighty. And I think we're getting pretty close. Actually, not really, because I was going to go over a few other things here. Astrology is really a vast subject, so there's so much to talk about when it comes to astrology. Okay, so chapter 13 is Fixed Star Legends in the Memory of Prehistoric Skies. Ancient cultures named stars and told stories about them not merely as primitive science, but as mnemonic devices encoding precise astronomical knowledge and spiritual instruction. The Pleiades, seven sisters, are globally associated with the cataclysm myth, the loss of a sister, which may reflect the naked eye observation of one star's diminishing brightness. The Kali Yuga is said to begin when the Pleiades align with the vernal equinox. The star Vega, or Alpha Lyrae, was the pole star around 12,000 BCE, presiding over the Proto-Leonine Age. The legends of the vulture Lyra, as a psychopomp soul-bearer, match the shamanic flight during that era. The shifting of pole stars, Vega de Thuban to Polaris, marks the macro shifts in the Axis Mundi mythologies. On to chapter 14, Quantum Observer Effects in Ritual and Divination. The act of drawing a horoscope is a quantum measurement. The chart is a symbol for the superposition of possibilities. The reading collapses it into meaningful narrative. Ancient astrological divination, Omaina, the Intu priest of Babylon, the I Ching of China, which has a 64 hexagram structure mirroring 64 codons and possible genetic information, created feedback loops where the collective observation of a planetary omen influenced the behavior that made the omen quote-unquote come true. This is not superstition but a participatory co-creation. Ritual is a technology of collapsing desirable probability waves. When a society performs a New Year ritual, for example the Babylonian Akitu, during the spring equinox, Sun in Aries, it is intentionally aligning its collective consciousness with the renewed solar hero, collapsing war or fertility as needed. The quantum Zeno effect, an unstable particle, if observed continuously, will never decay, analogizes how sustained ritual attention can stabilize a desired archetype, peace, abundance against entropic collapse. Alright, toward an integral astro-anthropology. Advancement and disadvancement are not linear. They are the systole and diastole of the cosmic heart, the Rahu pulse and Ketu retreat. Every astrological era brings a gift and a shadow. The Aries age gave the individual, but at the cost of the feminine. The Piscean age gave universal love, but at the cost of material denial. The Aquarian age gives global connectivity, but at the risk of dissociated surveillance. And advanced astroanthropology does not seek to predict the future with fatalism, but to diagnose the archetypal potentials being constellated so that humanity may consciously participate in their manifestation. As quantum mechanics teaches, the observer is always part of the experiment. We are the universe observing itself. By knowing the celestial myths, the fixed star legends, and nodal evolutionary impulse, we become responsible co-authors of the next chapter. The task now is to integrate the shadowism of Ketu, the indigenous memory, the feminine, the contemplative interior, with the aspirational genius of Rahu, the technological, the egalitarian network, the starbound future, into a dynamic balance within the sacred geometry of aspects. The chart is alive, the music of the spheres plays on. Now I would like to go over our appendix here. So I have appendix A, B, C, and D. A is ephemerides of key astrohistorical events, B is fixed star conjunction tables for planets, C is asteroid discovery charts and their metric correlations, and D is Saros series interpretations for collective eclipses. So notice for appendix A, for pre-modern events, dates are often approximate. Planetary longitudes are reconstructed from modern algorithms, for example JPL DE431, Swiss ephemeris expressed in the tropical zodiac for epoch J2000.0. Fixed star positions are for the event epoch. All times are given as universal time, UT, where known. Otherwise, approx orbs for fixed stars are always going to be lesser than 1 degrees, conjunct the ecliptic unless otherwise noted. So we look at the cognitive revolution, first symbolic burials and cave art. Circa 70,000 BCE approximate window right here. We look at that key event, the appearance of unequivocal symbolic behavior, ochre engraving, shell beads, and intentional burials at sites like Blombos Cave, South Africa, and School in Israel. It represents the emergence of fully syntactical language and mythic imagination. We look at that astrological signature, and we look at the midpoint window. We see Pluto was at approximately 27 degrees Sag near the galactic center. The galactic core is 27 degrees Sag. Uranus at 2 degrees Capricorn, Neptune at 10 degrees Sag, an immutable T-square with the lunar nodes Rahu in late Pisces. We also see Saturn at 15 degrees Virgo opposing a stellium in Pisces. With the fixed star Sirius, conjunct the Sun at heliacal rising, also activating the vulture, Vega then pole star by lunar transit, Alkaid beneath Nash, the mourner star, rising with the burial rituals. Okay? So we can interpret The nodal axis in Pisces, Virgo, signals the collective awakening of the imaginal, Rahu in Pisces, demanding integration through ritual technique, Ketu in Virgo. Pluto on the galactic center opens a quantum information download from the supermassive black hole, an archetypal broadcast that seeded Homo sapiens' global mythological grammar. Onto the exile age conjunction. Approximately in 580 BCE, the key event, a simultaneous flowering of Greek philosophy, Pythagoras, Heraclitus, Hebrew prophets, Zoroaster, Isaiah, Zoroastrian reform, Buddhism, Gautama Buddha's enlightenment, Jainism, Mahavira, Confucianism, and Taoism. Exact conjunction, January 25th, 580 BCE, Saturn and Neptune conjunct at 14 degrees Scorpio, tropical sidereal approximately 25 degrees Libra, Uranus at 5 degrees Pisces forming a grand water trine with the Saturn, Neptune, and a Jupiter-Sun conjunction in Cancer, Pluto at 15 degrees Capricorn opposing the Saturn, Neptune, Rahu at 10 degrees Aries, Ketu at 10 degrees Libra, fixed star conjunction at Aries, the heart of the Scorpion within 1 degrees of the Saturn-Neptune point, anchoring the death rebirth mystical intensity. And we can interpret the Saturn-Neptune opposition to Pluto with Rahu and Aries, dissolved archaic sacrificial structures, Ketu and Libra purging blood sacrifice, while seeding universalist ethical and soteriological systems. And Aries imbued these teachings with the warrior heart's intensity, creating spiritual athletes. So I was talking about the fall of the Roman Empire next, deposition of Romulus Augustulus. September 4th, 476 CE. Traditional fall deposition. If you look at the chart for Rome, set for approximately noon, September 4th, 476, sun's at 11 degrees Virgo, moon's at 26 degrees Gemini, Mercury's at 24 degrees Leo, Venus is at 26 degrees Cancer, Mars is at 19 degrees Scorpio, Jupiter is at 24 degrees Cancer, Saturn is at 16 degrees Aquarius, Uranus is at 24 degrees Taurus, Neptune is at 2 degrees Scorpio, Pluto is at 17 degrees Capricorn, Rahu is at 22 degrees Sag, Ketu is at 22 degrees Gemini, eclipse is at 476, total lunar eclipse on January 9th, 19 degrees Cancer Capricorn, annular solar eclipse on January 24th at 5 degrees Aquarius. The key aspects, Saturn in Aquarius, squaring Uranus and Taurus, destabilization of structures, Mars and Scorpio exactly conjunct Neptune, trine Pluto and Capricorn, covert power struggle, slow decay from within, the nodal axis Sagittarius Gemini, saw the empire's grand narrative disintegrate into fragmented barbarian kingdoms. Fixed star activation. So Algol at 0 degrees Taurus transited by Uranus later that year, signaling the decapitation of imperial authority. Regulus, heart of the lion, at 8 degrees Virgo, conjoined the sun, but in its fall, royal hubris, meeting the virgin's humbling. The great conjunction of 1453 and the Renaissance trigger. 1453 CE, multiple exact Uranus-Pluto conjunctions that year, alongside other configurations. Uranus-Pluto conjunction, exact June 28th, 1453 at 0 degrees Leo, tropical, marking the cusp of a new 127-year cycle. Saturn-Pluto opposition, zigzag, August 22nd, 1453, Saturn at 29 degrees Leo, Pluto at 29 degrees Aquarius, Neptune at 20 degrees Scorpio, trining Jupiter in Pisces, and Rahu at 13 degrees Aries, Ketu at 13 degrees Libra. The event is the fall of Constantinople, May 29th, 1453, Gutenberg's printing press Bible, 1455, an onset of high Renaissance. So we interpret the Uranus-Pluto conjunction in early Leo, a sign of creative sovereignty, erupted as a rebirth of classical humanism, Ketu and Libra. The Saturn-Pluto opposition forced the death of the old political spiritual order, Byzantium, and the consolidation of the Ottoman, Capricorn, Aquarius, Realpolitik. The printing press, ruled by Uranus-Mercury, distributed to regain knowledge. Now let's talk about the American experiment, Declaration of Independence. So sun's at 13 degrees Cancer, moon 27 degrees Capricorn, Mercury 24 degrees Cancer, Venus 4 degrees Cancer, Mars at 21 degrees Gemini, Jupiter at 5 degrees Leo, Saturn at 14 degrees Libra, Uranus at 8 degrees Gemini, Neptune at 23 degrees Virgo, Pluto at 27 degrees Capricorn retrograde, and Rahu at 8 degrees Leo, making Ketu at 8 degrees Aquarius. So key aspects, Sun in Cancer, the homeland, squares Saturn in Libra, the weight of law and justice. Mars, Uranus conjunction in Gemini, revolutionary communication, a decentralized military action. Venus in Cancer trine Neptune in Virgo, the ideal of nurturing democracy. And fixed star Sirius at 12 degrees Cancer, exactly conjunct the Sun within 1 degree in the nation's solar essence. Sirius, the star of initiation and custodianship, encodes the shining city on a hill motif and the burden of high destiny. The Sun-Sirius conjunction made the American identity a celestial mandate for good and for the hubris of exceptionalism. French Revolution and the Uranus-Neptune cycle occurred July 14th, 1789, storming of the Bastille approximate noon. Sun at 22 degrees Cancer, Moon at 13 degrees Aries, Uranus at 4 degrees Leo, conjunct the 1453 point, a return resonance. Neptune at 5 degrees Scorpio, square the Uranus-Pluto at 1453. Pluto at 14 degrees Aquarius, opposing the 1776 Uranus. Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, upcoming in 1790 at 0 degrees Pisces. The Great Conjunction in the sign of dissolution. Rahu at 18 degrees Scorpio, Ketu at 18 degrees Taurus. So we interpret the Sun conjunct the USA's natal Sun, 13 degrees Cancer, in the Bastille chart shows the contagious nature of the revolutionary archetype. Neptune and Scorpio square Uranus and Leo unleash the collective shadow and the ideal of liberty becoming terror. The Ketu and Taurus demanded the sacrifice of the agricultural base and the ancient regime's material wealth. Let's also talk about the Industrial Revolution's consolidation, Congress of Vienna, and Saturn-Pluto. So the date is November 20th, 1815, the Treaty of Paris, second treaty, approximate. Sun is at 27 degrees Scorpio. Saturn is at 21 degrees Capricorn, Pluto at 28 degrees Pisces retrograde, Uranus at 18 degrees Sag, close to the galactic center, Neptune at 6 degrees Sag, Jupiter at 25 degrees Libra, Mars at 5 degrees Virgo in the nodes, Rahu at 24 degrees Taurus, Ketu 24 degrees Scorpio. And we see our key configuration is Saturn in Capricorn exactly trine Ketu in Scorpio, sextile Rahu in Taurus, entrenchment of the material industrial order. Uranus in Sag conjunct the galactic center at 27 degrees, seated a global trade and philosophical expansion.